I'm Eoin Gilhooly. I lead Intelligent Platform Services, or IPS, in Ireland for Accenture. This is a series that explores the transformational potential for businesses using strategic platforms across their organisation. At Accenture, we bring value to our customers by delivering joint solutions with our platform partners. I'm delighted to be joined today by our partner, SAP. Over the past 30 years, as SAP's #1 partner, we've collaborated on some of the largest technology projects in Ireland within both the public and private sector. With us to give an insight into the work we do together are Ray Joyce, Head of Sales for SAP Ireland, Celine Cazali, UKI Head of Mid-Market for SAP, and Karl Conroy, SAP Business Group Lead for Accenture in Ireland. You're all very welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So look, let's kick off, guys. And Karl, as we know, we're living through a time of unprecedented technology change, both pre and post-pandemic. What trends have we seen in the marketplace that SAP as a platform can solve for?
Well, Eoin, I think there's 3 key trends that we're seeing today. One is clients and their journey to cloud to really maximize the power of cloud technologies, and SAP's S4 really enables and enhances that. Secondly, enabling small to medium enterprises with a backbone solution, ERP, that SAP also provides so they can actually drive their progress and really be set up for growth. And the fourth one is enabling and helping customers sort of manage the workforce of today, which is very different from how it was, say, 1.5 to 2 years ago.
So Karl, we've talked a lot with our customers and our partners over the last number of years about cloud, but why should companies move to cloud?
I think one of the main reasons why companies should move to cloud is simplification. Companies have embedded SAP, particularly large enterprises, for the last 10 or 15 years. And over that amount of time, their landscape has changed dramatically. A lot of it has changed through acquisition. A lot of those companies have bought other companies and now have a landscape of many different ERPs. Some of them SAP, some of them non-SAP. I mean, if I think about one of our key clients, they actually have 16 different SAP instances.
So it's spaghetti junction in there.
It's absolute spaghetti junction, right? And it impacts everywhere. So there's process issues. People do things 16 different ways. Trying to get the data out so you can actually have an understanding of what's happening across your enterprise is absolutely onerous. Has to have Excel in the middle of it. It's really painful. And then the third point is cost. There's a whole lot of extra cost caught up in all these on-premise servers and the people that it takes to manage all of them. So again, a lot of complexity built into there. Now, when companies are seeing this as being a real inflection point, that when they move to the cloud and they move to S4, they can actually simplify all of that, right? So they move to a single instance of S4, so they get rid of the 16 different ERPs. As they do that, they simplify the process. So they come up with a way of how to actually do the things the best way. And we and SAP come with that best practice to enable them to actually embed a good practice there. And then the data that they get it out, one, it's real time because it's powered by S4. And secondly, it's a single set of data. It's not disparate data across 16 environments anymore. And lastly, the cost element. They've moved away from this heavy intensive CapEx model to a cloud-based OpEx model, all bringing value to clients.
And what does that mean for companies? That means that they instead of an upfront cost, it's over time.
Correct, yeah. So instead of plowing millions into server farms that are held on their premises, they now pay a single service subscription for their cloud provider, the hyperscaler that's providing cloud instances, and to SAP for the licenses.
Yeah.
And Karl, it's fair to say the last 2 years with the pandemic, companies have had to be much more agile. They've had to pivot their business model. So really the move to the cloud, we're seeing a big shift. Companies are ready to adopt standard, and therefore we can achieve the simplification that you mentioned.
If we give a real-life example of that, there's a company in the UK called Inchcape, and they've moved to SAP Rise just this year. And they had a lot of complexity as well. They were in 4 different sites in many different territories. They had a number of ERPs. They had different SIs providing support and services. They had
that sort of thing, different SIs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, different hosting providers. So it was a complex mammoth task for them to run. But what they managed to do with Rise is move over to SAP to have one software provider, one maintenance contract, one hosting provider, one technical managed services, one application managed services, and I think that's about infrastructure, etc. But
The whole thing is simplified.
the whole thing. Well, the whole thing is in one SLA, one contract. So you can imagine the simplicity for them to be able to run their business that way compared to the old, complicated way in which you mentioned, Karl.
Great example, Ray. Thanks a lot. Ray, how are SAP enabling this rapid move to the cloud?
Yeah, so I suppose SAP have been on their own interesting journey over the last 10 years. If you look at traditionally, it was very much an on-premise ERP company. What they've done over the last 10 years is basically twofold to move towards the cloud. So one, replicating the kind of extensive functionality which they had within the on-premise world, keeping and supporting that, but replicating that in R&D and development of our cloud products. But they've also been highly acquisitive and have bought many different best-in-breed, tier one cloud solutions. You think of in the HR space, we bought SuccessFactors. In the e-commerce space, we bought Hybris, Ariba, Amarsis, etc. The list goes on and on. So that's really what we've done in order to enable our customers to get the full breadth of our solutions in the cloud. The other element then, what's been done in conjunction, was the transformation of our traditional ECC6, our ERP solution. So the first stage of that was moving over to a HANA database. After that, it was the release of S4. And combined, when we had the core S4 and all of those line of business elements was, we then had what we call the intelligent enterprise. And I suppose the next iteration of that is RISE, and if we look at RISE, a lot of people automatically assume that this might be another product by SAP, but essentially what it is a framework of services and software that give you, agility and flexibility regardless where you are in your ERP journey.
Very good, very good. And Karl, so if SAP have RISE, how do Accenture support this from a delivery perspective?
Yeah, so where SAP have RISE, Accenture, we always have to try and do one up. We have SOAR, so we're attempting to really rise the game here. And what we're doing as a systems integrator is to kind of try and really bring value to the implementation of the software. So, initially, we work with companies and we use some of our SOAR best practices to kind of figure out what's the best roadmap for those companies, and also how can they get value from that particular implementation. We also then bring a lot of assets. So we've got over 180 assets already built on SAP's business technology platform, which is SAP's new approach to keeping the core of SAP clean and then to have the enhancements outside of that. So we have 180 assets that we can bring to the market straight out of the box for clients.
So we have RISE from SAP and SOAR from Accenture, but what industry-specific solutions are we co-creating with SAP, Karl?
So from an industry-specific, we've got two elements of it. We've got Accenture being a global company, we do global solutions. So we work with SAP on interesting stuff like product footprint management, which we'll come to and talk to later. But that's a global thing that we're doing. Locally, I myself are working with the product owner for a new piece of functionality in SAP called segmentation. And what that is, it's really critical. Again, I talked about life sciences and pharmaceutical companies earlier. It's really important for these guys who are dealing in a highly regulated environment. Previously, they had a problem that they had a lot of master data, which they spent a lot of money in maintaining and keeping going. And again, we talked about process inefficiencies, drove a lot of process inefficiencies. This segmentation solution is bringing a much more streamlined approach to that, which, again, gets rid of all the inefficiencies, makes them regulatory compliant, and really important for the supply chain, allows the supply chain ship the product with confidence, which eradicates any of the possible recalls that they have faced in the past.
Wow, and that's really applicable given the current developments with COVID vaccines and all of those areas that type of functionality can really assist in real life for organizations. Correct.
On COVID, if we look at the big pharmaceutical companies that have actually created COVID vaccines, that problem is rife through their ERP. They have, in some cases, had maybe 150 different variations of COVID within the ERP just to adhere to the regulations. Going forward, it'll only be one version of that, which is going to bring all that simplification that they're really after.
Great. Look, so what I'm hearing is S4 and the move to cloud can really accelerate value for customers, particularly allowing them to move from CapEx to OpEx and really reduce complexity and standardized processes across their organization. That's great insight, guys. Thanks very much for that. So Karl talked about the mid-market earlier, Celine, And there's a perception out there in the marketplace that SAP and Accenture only work with larger organizations. But how are we helping smaller organizations?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, it's fair to say everyone knows SAP is, most of the global 2000 Forbes company run SAP. But you'll be surprised to hear that actually 80% of SAP customers are actually SME companies. And in the UK and Ireland alone, we have about 3,000 customers who run our SME solution.
Wow.
So I guess the move to the cloud has been really important for allowing us to serve and to better serve the mid-market company, as we're providing companies that aspire to grow. Most of the mid-market companies are not there to stay small. They have the ambition to be the next large enterprise company.
Yeah.
So we're providing them with our cloud S4 RISE solution, a platform that allows them to grow into the future. And that's really important. And the fact that it's a fully managed service, it also allows smaller organizations to embrace SAP and to be able to focus on their core activity, while SAP and Accenture can help them run their system.
Great. And any more perspective from you, Ray, on that?
Yeah, I think from an Irish perspective, again, the misconception is out there that SAP is only for the large enterprises. We have 700 customers using SAP products within Ireland. Fine, we have the Kerry Groups and the CRHs and the Smiths, etc. But the vast majority of those 700, probably more than 80%, are SME organisations. And we're finding that they can scale and they can grow, and they have the want to become a large enterprise, and SAP helps them do that. I think what we're seeing in the marketplace a lot as well is startups adopting SAP, which might be news to some people. And I suppose there's probably 4 reasons for that. The first being that they're not constrained by what geographical areas they can go into. SAP sorts out any localizations for them. We're covered by almost every country in the world. The other element is that if the end game is to be acquired, it might be more appealing for a large enterprise to buy a company that runs SAP. If they are the acquirer and are trying to grow by acquisition, you will have it's a lot easier to onboard other companies into the organization.
Scale the solution as
absolutely.
You know, yeah.
And then finally, if the end goal is to move or to go IPO, maybe it's more appealing to the street to have a company that runs SAP.
Any tips for upcoming IPOs for us?
No, I can't disclose that.
And Karl, how do Accenture and SAP help businesses in this market segment to utilize the power of SAP?
Yeah, so from an SME mid-market perspective, I mean, Accenture have seen that there is this growing market here. And again, there's Celine kind of talked about earlier about busting some myths. I think it's important to know from a myth-busting perspective, Accenture is also very keen to work in the mid-market, to the point that we actually made an acquisition earlier this year of a company called Eden House. From an Irish market perspective, we saw there being a real great capability and opportunity for Accenture to get into the mid-market. What we're seeing trends-wise is that small to medium enterprises are much more open to making the move to S4 a lot quicker than the larger enterprise. We talked about the complexity that's in large enterprise, so it takes a lot to move them. But from a mid-market perspective, they're really eager to make that move and to actually get into SAP and get the best and the latest from SAP. And then from an Eden House perspective, what we're learning and building upon is the packages that they bring. I mean, their local expertise, which they have in the UK, we're going to mimic that in Ireland. We're going to have a local service centre. The packages that they bring is really key to how we deliver, because they bring speed and they bring value. And then they also provide a run element to the service at the end. So it's not a case of Eden House deploy the solution, but they also provide the support after the implementation is complete.
And Celine, you've some experience of working with Eden House from your mid-market focus.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about when I heard the news that you'd acquired Eden House, as certainly in Ireland you've got a very large presence. You're doing a lot of advisory, and probably for the mid-market companies. And what Eden House bring to the mix is the delivery arm. They've spent the last few years building packages in life science, pharma, CPG, professional services, which allow to bring those transformation at, to transform at speed. They have all the best practice, the template. They've done it many times. They have the industry, relevance. So for us, it's really exciting to see the combination of both. And Ray, we have big ambition, because I agree with you. We're seeing a lot of acceleration of transformation in the mid-market, because companies have to stay competitive and they have to really pivot their business model at the moment.
Because I know, Ray, you've mentioned as well, it's great to have another local company focused in the mid-market for Ireland.
Absolutely, and from my own personal point of view, before being part of the SAP Ireland sales team, I was part of the SAP UK sales team, and I worked extensively with Eden House. So really happy to see the acquisition, and looking forward to working with Eden House again.
Yep.
And I think to add on, we're really happy about having Eden House, but Eden House are really happy being part of Accenture, because we now provide them with support that they haven't had in the past. I mean, if I think about one of the clients that we're working with on Eden House, typically Accenture would not have bid for the particular piece of work, and Eden House wouldn't have bid for the piece of work because they required a global footprint, which Eden House, being a UK-based solution enterprise, didn't have that global footprint. But now, because we bring Eden House and Accenture together, we can have the benefits of what Eden House bring to the mid-tier market, but also the global Accenture footprint allows them to develop and deploy wherever clients may be.
Great, and great synergies together then. Yeah. And one of the other things that we talked about earlier was how COVID has made the challenge in managing workforces more complicated, and the need for agility from that. What trends are we seeing coming from that need for agility?
Well, I think it's fair to say it's been the most transformational time we've all experienced. I think I have been in the office for 2 years.
Yep.
So really at the moment, most companies are looking at how do they go into the future. They have to change their HR policy. They have to rethink. They have to really get a good understanding of, what their workforce wants. So I suppose we're seeing, as in the past, people started always with finance transformation. We're seeing now an acceleration of companies really looking to implement HR solution, because they need to get insight in, why are people leaving their company? We're coming out of lockdown. We've seen, I think we were discussing that, Ray, we're seeing people wanted to not compromise anymore. They're ready to leave your organization. So we really have to understand, what do our workforce want? And for that, we need the data, and we need to offer an employee experience. So like we discussed, we have a platform, SuccessFactors, that is seen as tier one, but with the help of our partner building this, accelerator and template, we're able to help mid-sized company on their HR transformation.
I think Celine makes a really interesting point around the way things used to be. Finance transformation was everything. Now HR transformation is much more important, and one of the clients that we're working with at the moment have actually prioritized HR transformation over the move to doing a finance transformation from their ERP. So they're in a position where they could go down the journey of going to S4, but they've actually prioritized the SuccessFactors implementation over and above that, because they've seen the importance of it. And not only are they sort of targeting that because of they see the war for talent that's going on there at the moment. Everybody is sort of feeling freer to be able to move, right? And so they really want to sort of hold on to their people and make sure they've got the right people so they can grow their business. And at the same time, they've decided that they need, from an organizational point of view, they need to change their organization, and they need to sort of radically do things differently from a HR perspective. So not only are they implementing SuccessFactors, but they're also changing the internal organization and using SuccessFactors as the kind of the driver to bring change throughout the organization, with the end goal of, Celine mentioned, getting that necessary insight about the people, why people join them, what the experience is as their employees within the organization, and crucially, why people actually leave them, so that they can look at the attrition problem and make sure they're holding on to the right people.
So it's not just a technology implementation, there's a kind of more end-to-end solution here, from strategy to operating model to SuccessFactors as the SI solution then.
Correct.
Yeah, and also complementary to SuccessFactors is SAP's product Qualtrics. So it's an experience management solution, headquartered, EMEA headquartered out of Dublin here. But I recently seen a survey in the Sunday Business Post that said 48% of people are actually looking to move company. And you think the traditional way in which we work, and we had our friends and groups and all the events within the office, there was a real association to a brand, and now that's removed. People are on the move a lot more and looking for the next challenge. So I suppose with Qualtrics, what it gives customers is, you know, better insight into how their customers, or how their customers, which are their employees, are feeling, you know, on a day-to-day basis, how they feel about the brand, how they feel about the leadership, how they feel about their own managers. And I think it's something that people are really trying to implement now in order to create retention in the workforce.
Great, and get all that sentiment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think most employers at the moment are surveying their workforce to understand how many days do you want to be in the office. And they're evaluating their real estate. Like, there's really fundamental change, and we're going to see, you know, decision made. And so it's essential for companies to have a way in which to be constantly in touch with the workforce and really make those adjustments.
Yeah, that's great insight, guys. And we always finish with looking to the future. So what SAP innovations do we see coming over the next 5 years, Celine?
So I think it's fair to say at present, most of the discussion we're having with CEO or leader of organization is around the sustainability topic. And SAP, with, you know, the deep expertise we have in 25 industries, is really, really well placed to help. I did a bit of analysis, and I realized I was really surprised to see that we impact 77% of the world, you know, supply chain. So with the deep industry expertise and our connectivity, we're very, very well placed to help organizations. Not only we have the data insight into our platform, but we also have built-in processes that really helps organizations to report their carbon footprint, better manage their waste, and make, you know, sound decision in terms of sustainability. So, but the big thing around, you know, this agenda is our co-innovation with partners like yourself. We provide the technology, but you bring it to life with your IP. And I believe, Karl, you're doing a lot with us at the moment on that topic.
Yeah, so we talked about assets earlier, and I briefly mentioned product footprint management, which is kind of the key solution that ourselves and SAP are working on to bring a sustainable solution. I mean, Celine mentioned 77% of the supply chain runs SAP, and the supply chain is critical to actually monitoring carbon. And from an ERP perspective, SAP is throughout the organization, so it can monitor it through every step of the way. So from the raw materials as they come in from suppliers, through the manufacturing steps within the organization, the carbon that's generated on the shop floor, all the way out to the supply chain, either through third-party logistics providers or even out to the end customer. And the product footprint management solution sort of covers all of that. So
this is not greenwashing for sake.
No, this is
real insight.
This is actual real insight tracking of the carbon as it actually happens and occurs within an industry, so that what actually gets reported in the ESG reports is actual fact. It's not high-level decomposed information. This is real data. And really, ERPs are the only place where you can actually get that. I mean, you may have other applications that can give you a feel for the carbon footprint. SAP and product footprint management is the real solution for that. And just to bring it back to local again, we're currently in conversations with one of our key clients for them to be a charter client, so they can actually get on the ground with ourselves and SAP and sort of influence the solution so that it's actually fit for purpose, and then that product can be sort of deployed, and all enterprises can really get the value from this and sort of be really true to what carbon impact they're making on society.
So Accenture and SAP leading the way on this together. That's really exciting for us to be co-creating this solution. We look forward to continuing our partnership with you over the coming years. And thanks for being here today and providing all that insight. And thank you for watching. And hopefully we'll see you in the next episode.